when I was a little kid, we had this toy my father bought and brought it home. And what it was is a man, or looked like a man, just flat wood, and it had these legs that moved, and it had a long stick sticking out of this guy's back. And you could take that stick and you could wobble him a little bit and push him forward, and he'd take a step, and he'd do the same thing they did. That's the way I felt today when I was walking across the way here with my new shoes on. Like I'm walking with a wooden stick in my back, and but anyway, it is what it is. Let's talk about an interesting subject today of farming. And notice that when you start studying through the Bible, you're going to see God using farming an awful lot. He does this because He is trying to help you see the set laws of farming and how He can use this in order for you to be able to understand the spiritual realm. Now, here in Genesis chapter 1, verse 11 through 16, we see the way in which God has established farming. I think that should be, yeah, here we go. 20, hang on just a minute. It should be 24 through, when I want to finish, through 25 or 26. Okay, here we go. And God said, "Let the land produce living creatures according to their kind." Nope, that sounds wrong. Okay, it was.
I think it's 11 through 15, I think.
Okay, thank you very much. I just can't find it. Okay, then God said, "The land produced vegetation, seed-bearing plants, and trees on the land, and bear fruit with seeds in it, according to their various kinds." And it was so. The land produced vegetation, plants bearing seeds according to their kind. The trees bearing fruit with seed in it according to its kind. And God said it was good, and there was evening, and there was morning the third day. I didn't look up far enough to be able to get to 11. That's why I couldn't find it. So He's got these set laws, and what He tells us is that the laws of farming are very set, and they're there for us to be able to understand and to know. This should be a basic understanding for us, in which He can build upon to be able to help you understand things. And He tells us, eat various vegetable things produce according to their own kind. Now, this is something He establishes then, and He established in mankind, and He has established in every single thing. This is why, of course, evolution doesn't work. This is why you can now, even thousands and thousands of years later, since Adam and Eve produced their children, that you can have faith that you're going to have a human child and not some weird creature that has mutated and has come about because of evolution. Evolution has zero opportunity to function because He tells us it is after their own kind. You plant a kernel of corn, and you're not surprised when a plant comes up that produces corn. And He uses this many times, like for example, He'll tell you that what you sow will reap sometimes 40, sometimes 60, sometimes 100-fold. Well, look at that look at that ear of corn there. That's what I was trying to say was ear of corn there, and see that it produced a lot more than what that one kernel of corn that produced the whole plant did. And there were several ears on the stalk. So God is showing you His bounty. He's showing you that how this is set. He's showing you in order for you to be able to know. And besides, it was important for them to see so they could understand the laws of God and who God is, and be able to understand themselves. In fact, he tells us that this was an agricultural world. It was until the time of the Industrial Revolution. The world was agricultural, really and truly, until more modern times. And people were still continuing to count on the way in which they had always done it. Isn't it interesting? You see the muzzles on the two oxen. Does that remind you of the verse about muzzling the ox in the corn and so on? So because it's agricultural, people could understand it when God says things to them and tells them how the condition they are in their soul by showing them the agricultural equivalent of it. But then we had the Industrial Revolution and things changed. In fact, most of us are far removed from the soil. Most of us go to our store and we think that's where meat comes from and vegetables come from. And if it doesn't come in cellophane, we don't want it. You know. In fact, there are people out there protesting about animals being killed, and they're not protesting about vegetables being killed. I don't know why. But this time period changed, and we are on this side of it. Remember, everything has to do with the timeline. And for you to be able to understand the Old Testament and see this, you've got to be able to understand the way in which and why God uses these terms and how He talks. And then He says, all was doing as God designed. He said it in these words, it was so. So God has designed this world to be this way, and He's designed it to function exactly as He has shown. And this is good. We can know, we can understand. In fact, you can go out there today and you can get in that hunk of metal you came in, and you can put that little piece of metal into the slot and turn it and know that your car will start and take you home, because everything is so according to God. And everything functions the way in which God wanted it to function. So we see that throughout farming. And the farming God uses to show us the relationship between us and God. In fact, let's look over to Isaiah chapter 28 and see what he says to us about farming and how he's talking to these people. Look what he says here in verse 24. When he has leveled the surface, when the farmer plows for planting, does he plow continually? Does he keep on breaking up and harrowing the soil? Well, the next verse tells us what he does is he sows the seed after that point. So he's telling them, you're going to have some problems, but when you're going to have problems, it isn't going to be continual, it's going to stop, but your land may be barren because you have left me. He's trying to shock them into the situation where they must come closer and closer and closer to God. And a barren land is of no value to anyone. It's basically worthless unless it's in the hands of a master craftsman who can produce a farm out of it, one using the laws of God. He was telling them, you're going to go into exile, you're going to go into bondage, but I'm not plowing forever. I don't continue to plow forever. No farmer does. There's going to come a time when he is going to sow the seeds and you're going to come back again close to me. I'm going to be someone who is going to be with you. I've got to break this up because you're not thinking of me. Let me tell you, there are times in which we find ourselves in horrible condition in the world, and we say, why is this happening to me? And it may be because we're far from God, and He is using this car wreck, or this pain, or this condition, or this worry, this strife, or someone leaves, or someone comes, and there's problems, and He is saying, pay attention to me. Turn back to me. And then He tells them, I'm going to take you to a place of land and milk and honey. And what He was saying is, there's a place you're going to go, and the cows are ready to be milked, and you didn't have to buy them. You didn't have to breed them up until the fact that they can have milk, and it's going to be just there for you. They're going to be bees. Well, what do bees have to have? Well, they have to have plants to gather the pollen and bring it in and make honey. So you're going to a place and receive blessings that you have never worked for. Do you see how He uses farming in discussing things with the people of the Old Testament? And then later He tells them that everything He was doing was designed for them. He was designed to help them. In fact, He tells us in Romans that it is the laws of nature we can look at and know Him. Look what it says here in Romans 1 verse 20. For His invisible attributes, namely His eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly perceived ever since the creation of the world in the things that have been made, so that man is without excuse. You can go out there and look at nature and you can know there is a God. Our nation was built upon that supposition. The Declaration, one of the most important points of our writings, is ignored over the Constitution, unfortunately, because the Declaration tells us upon the standards by which this nation was built. And it says, and how we're taking place amongst the other nations. That we can know there is a God, and we're going to act right according to the laws of nature and nature's God. So He tells us the same thing today that He told them throughout the Old Testament. Our God is a powerful God who wants to make sure that we fully understand how God uses nature to be able to make us aware of and to stay with God, who is for us, not against us, and making sure that we can know whether we're with Him. Now, takes us to tonight's study, which is going to be about racism. In fact, you may even be surprised. I would venture to say You may even be shocked that there is no such thing as racism. And we'll discuss that tonight. Now let's take a real deep look at the mind and what Philippians tells us so that we can know what to do. And he's talking farming again. Are you listening? Here we go. Chapter 4, verses 8 through 9. Finally, brothers, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think on these things. You say, wait a minute, gee, I didn't see any farming in there, yet your mind is a fertile field in which you must weed the thoughts that are going to be produced there. It would be silly for you to go out there and plow a section of land and never plant a seed and expect nothing to grow up, because you see, something will grow up. It always does. You can go find cities out there that have been reclaimed by nature, and vegetation growing all over the buildings and through the concrete and everywhere, because it doesn't stop. And here's what he tells us. Your mind is a fertile field. It is a field ready for the planting. And the mind, the field, doesn't care what is planted. It may be poison for you, or it may be food, but it's going to grow something. How's Jody doing with her poison? Huh? Oh, poison ivy. Oh, is it Becky? I'm sorry. How's Becky doing with her poison? And so she understands this. The earth will grow anything. It doesn't care what it is. It's going to grow it and grow it well. The same is true with your mind. You're the one who decides what is contrary to God and what is for God. You're the one who chooses what stays in your mind and what you weed out. Just like it is with your little garden, if you have one. And even if you don't have a garden, you've probably got some little plants or flowers or something around it. And whether or not you allow weeds to grow there, or whether you allow the beautiful things that you want to grow there, is your choice. And that means that you are the farmer of your own mind. If you don't like something you're doing and you say that, or somebody else doesn't like what you're doing, and they say to you, why do you do this? And you say to them, it's just who I am. You're not doing much farming. You're just allowing the fertile field to grow whatever it is it wants to grow. And so you have to weed out things that are contrary to God. This means it's going to be difficult. It's not going to be easy. This is why you keep having the same day over again that you had yesterday. Because the way you are is habitual. And people who have had gardens and had to weed them know it is painful. It's painful on the back. It's painful on the knees. It's painful because it takes hard work. And that's something we usually don't consider is hard work. We don't consider it because it's hard. Now we'll go to work and we'll do a job that our boss tells us to do because we want to have money to be able to pay our bills or to be able to eat or whatever. We understand that. But we're talking about the mind. We're talking about who you are at your core. And you've got to learn about farming, which he discusses all throughout the Old Testament. But now as he's coming closer to you to live within you, he's telling you, you're the one in charge of your mind. In fact, you have to plant noble thinking in order to produce godly actions. And if you don't plant noble thinking, then what you're planting is ignoble thinking or evil, things that are contrary to God. And those things produce actions as well. The actions when you all of a sudden turn around and spout off to your spouse, or you think, well, my boss won't see this, I'll let it go today, no big deal. This is why we hear about people who have embezzled billions of dollars. It didn't start that way. It started with just a little bit. But because they got into the habit of it, they had to keep going and they had to keep it up. And they forgot that they are trying to hide that, and all of a sudden one day someone stumbles across the truth, and when they see that on the ledger, they search it out and find out what they've done. Here's what he tells you to plant in your fertile mind. He wants you to plant whatever is true. Don't plant lies. Don't allow lies to grow in your mind. Unfortunately, our children are going into school and they are hearing over and over and over every single day about different genders. In other words, they invented that word so they could do this. I heard back in 1800s, the late 1800s, that Harvard University decided they were going to base every single thing they taught on science and not on God. Did you know that all the colleges that were first produced in America were produced to help men become preachers of the Word and to be able to understand God well, so that they would be good citizens with a constitution that makes it where you have to control yourself? You know how they know that? Because the laws that are based in the Constitution were designed to control the government, not to overstep your boundaries and not take away your rights. So we have to plant whatever is true. And then he tells us you have to plant whatever is right. Now you would say, wait a minute, isn't that the same thing? What may be right may also be true. But unless you know it's right, you're not going to do it, even if it's true. This morning you got up. Maybe you took a shower, maybe you did before you went to bed. You brushed your teeth, you combed your hairballs, you got dressed. Why did you do all that? You did all that because it's right to do. And your parents had spent maybe many years trying to help you understand that's the right thing to do. And you know that because when you go on vacation or let's say camping, and you finally are able to get back to water and the situation of home, and you think, oh my goodness, I can finally get me a bath, I can brush my teeth, I can get back and do what's right. But it wasn't right for you to do in the beginning. In the beginning, you were against the whole idea. Play in water, yes. Take a bath, no. So, whatever is true, and whatever is right, and then whatever is pure, this takes examination. You have to look and see, what is God talking about here? What is right? In fact, when you go out there and you plant, let's say you're going to plant tomatoes, and you can determine plants that are going to produce good tomatoes, and plants that are going to produce okay tomatoes, and not many of them. And so you'll keep the seeds of the ones who plant, of the plant that produces good tomatoes, because you're going to plant more of those next year. You know, I like to watch this little show on TikTok, and a guy comes on, they talk about their cows and everything. Well, I don't know much about cows. I know what tastes good and what doesn't, but I don't know how to raise them and everything. And it was kind of interesting. He said, now, when we get a cow like that, we're going to sell it. I think, well, it looks like a perfectly good cow. And it says, you see, the problem with this particular cow is that the calf can't latch on to it because her teats are too big, or the cow has a round bag, and it's going to produce milk, yes, and going to produce well, but not going to produce well for the calf. Or this cow's too tall. When the calf is born, she can't stand on her legs very well and can't even get up there to be able to nurse. And she's got to have that colostrum, or whatever it is that cows have to have when they're newborn, to make sure that they're immune to diseases. And so they're talking about this, and then they start talking about the bulls, and he says, we're going to sell that bull. Why? Because that bull always produces cows like this one we're going to sell. Isn't that interesting? So for you to be able to know what's pure, you're going to have to be able to examine it to see how it functions, whether it's good for you, whether it's going to poison your mind, whether you could kind of ignore it a little bit, but really and truly, is it pure enough for you to be able to be watching on a consistent basis and hearing on a consistent basis? Because what you've got to plant in your mind are noble things. Because you're noble people. You're a royalty of the people of God. And then you've got to plant whatever is lovely. Have you ever seen a field of plants where they're growing vegetables and out there will be flowers with them? And you think, oh, isn't that nice? A little piece of prettiness amongst all the vegetation there, the vegetables that are there. And then the guy will tell you, well, wait a minute. We found that if we plant this pretty flower here, then these particular aphids and worms and stuff don't like that. And if we plant it within this far, it won't change the taste of the carrots or wherever it is that they're planting it next to, but it will change the kind of infestation they will have. And it's lovely, but it's also good for you. Like going to a concert It's not easy to go to. You have to get dressed up. You have to go there, buy tickets and everything, and you go in and you hear this symphony playing things that are lovely. It takes you away from the day-to-day drumbeat of the world, the stamping of the press as it's going day after day after day and making you work and you're burned out. Go find something lovely to be able to build you up again, to be able to handle the day-to-day life. And he tells it, here's something else you ought to be planting in your mind. You need to be planting things that are admirable. Planting things that are right and good and higher quality than you have thought about before. To be thinking about, how should I deal with my money? Why is it that I'm always at the end of the month before I ever have the end of my paycheck? How do I need to handle that? I need to think more admirably about the money that God is giving me, or the children that I have. I need to think about the way that the words that are coming out of my mouth, about whether or not they are building those children up or tearing them down. I have to think about things that are admirable. I have to change my way of thought. This is weeding the mind of things that are contrary to God. This is just natural farming. And then he tells us, think about things that are excellent. Think. Where do you think? You think in the mind. So plant things there that are admirable. Because, they're excellent. Because they make you more noble in who you are. Excellent things. Don't get involved in the delusions of this world. Just the other day they came out with, well, let me tell you, I don't want to go into it too deeply, but man, we've been visited by aliens. Or what about this thing that they built over in France? It goes around so fast, CERN, I think they call it. And it goes around so fast that at some point it's going to explode and open a portal to some other world. And we just know it's going to come. And people are pouring their money into that. And dwelling on it, they even have live cameras so you can watch it function daily. Rather, get yourself in the things that are excellent, things of high quality, things that do the same thing but are better because of the way you think. And then he says, make sure that you think of things that praiseworthy. You know, if you could stand there and you could talk about the guys on this baseball team and their stats, and you can tell me, yeah, well, last year, he was really down. This year he's doing really well. He not only that, but he added to his 5 pitches this one, and it's really coming in handy when he's up against a left-hander and all this stuff. What's going on is you are praising something, but is it praiseworthy? Are you involving your mind on praiseworthy things? You have to make sure that they are things that produce godly actions. Because whatever you think about will become your motivation to do. Whatever you think about creates your ability to act. Your actions are based upon what's here in your mind. And the only one that's in charge of it is you, the farmer. You're in charge of that property. that real estate that is between your ears, where you can harbor thoughts and think on these things. That's going to produce godly actions that will give God the glory in life. So think about such things. These things are worthy of your thoughts, worthy of your attention, worthy of you to keep around. And then lastly, he tells us, keep your mind on good and positive things. How does he say that? He says it in a verse just before this, where he says, and the peace of God will transcend all understanding and will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. Look what he's saying. Guard your heart and your mind, that it doesn't fall for the things the world has fallen for. Don't let it be polluted by other people and other people's ideas. Always go back to what is right. Go back to the fact that God has given you the information. He's the one who's created this world. You don't have to worry about aliens. He's the one who has created all this. You don't have to worry about other realms coming in to appear. He told you that God created the eyes that are created only for the physical things and not for the spiritual things. Make sure that your heart is good and positive, that what you long for, what you think about, what you do are good and positive. When you meet other people and deal with them and you leave, make sure that they've had a good and positive time with you. Make sure they're glad you came and not glad you left. And the way you do that is to be centered on them and what they need, what they're involved in. So in other words, become a victor, not a victim. If all you can do is think about all the things that are going wrong in your world, and you're not counting on God to correct it, you're not living this life as a person loving God, desiring to be with God, and desiring to aid God by giving the world what they need to be able to see them through you. Every day you're farming. Every day God is telling you you're far away from me, or you're close to me, or I'm giving you blessings even though you have never worked hard to get them. Many times we know that some of the blessings we've had that were great were our physical body, and we were just too young to appreciate it. Oh, the saying goes, how the youth is so wasted on the young. Yeah. But that's part of growth. And you are the one farming your own mind. Have you thought about how you're thinking and the relationship you have with God? Is God uppermost in your mind? Is He the one that's directing your thoughts because you keep going over the scriptures again and again and again? Do you wake up singing songs of praises to God? Do you, when you're out there mowing endlessly on the yard, back and forth and back and forth? Or what are you thinking about? Is your mind stuck on a dumb song that never ends? Or are you right with God? If you're not right with God, you need to be baptized, or you want prayers, or you need help in any way, you can come forward as we stand and sing this song together.